Elena's pulse hammered as she sprinted through the maintenance corridors of the Geneva Vrax Cultural Center, the stolen data crystal cold against her palm. Behind her, the alarm system alternated between human and Vrax frequencies, a disorienting wail designed to incapacitate intruders of either species. The building's emergency lighting cast everything in a sickly amber glow that reminded her too much of the preservation fluid surrounding alien trophies she discovered minutes earlier. Dr. Kovacs, her earpiece crackled, exit route compromised. 3 hunters converging on your position. Her assistant Miguel had hijacked the building's security feed from a van parked 2 blocks away. A brilliant computer scientist who'd lost his family during the Indonesian tsunami. He'd been the only one to believe her suspicions about the Vrax. Alternative. Elena whispered, pressing herself against a wall as footsteps approached. Too light for creatures of such size, predatory grace in their movement. Maintenance shaft, Section 7B. It'll put you in the sewers. Elena mentally calculated the route. The shaft was 15 meters ahead, but between her and safety stood the very thing she feared most, a Vrax specimen collection station. She glimpsed it earlier on building schematics, labeled innocuously as cultural exchange preparation. No choice. The collection room was clinically sterile, with scanning equipment arranged in a circular pattern. In the center stood an examination table with restraints sized for human limbs. The walls displayed holographic human anatomical diagrams, meticulously annotated in Vrax script. Each organ system had been assigned collection priorities and preservation recommendations. Elena fought rising nausea as she crossed the room, keeping low. The maintenance hatch waited on the far wall, partially hidden behind sterilization equipment. As she reached for it, the door behind her hissed open. The linguistic specialist, came a voice like stones grinding together. How appropriate. Elena turned slowly. The Vrax standing in the doorway was smaller than most she'd seen, possibly female, though human xenobiologists were still debating their sexual dimorphism. What distinguished this one was the elaborate headdress of metallic fragments. She recognized pieces of technological devices from multiple civilizations. I am Tzeri, collection taxonomist. The alien continued, mandibles clicking with what Elena had learned was amusement. You've saved us considerable effort by coming here. You won't succeed, Elena said, fingers finding the small canister in her pocket, an emergency measure she'd hoped not to use. Humans aren't like the others. All prey say this. Tzeri moved with impossible speed, closing half the distance before Elena could blink. Your species has particularly amusing self-importance. We've cataloged your weapons, defenses, and psychological responses. There are no surprises left. Elena pulled the canister, twisting its cap. You missed something fundamental about us. The Vrax tilted its head, compound eyes gleaming with curiosity. We were prey once, Elena said, throwing the canister. But we became predators ourselves. The canister exploded into a cloud of specialized compound, harmless to humans, but which crystallized instantly in contact with the silicon-based respiratory structures unique to Vrax physiology. Tzeri stumbled back, exoskeleton plates flaring in distress as crystalline formations blocked its breathing spiracles. Elena didn't wait to see more. She wrenched open the maintenance hatch and dropped into darkness as emergency signals blared throughout the facility. The data crystal contained everything humanity needed to understand what they were truly facing. In orbit above Earth, aboard the primary Vrax vessel, Grand Huntmaster Khazarin received the security breach notification. Instead of anger, he felt a sensation rare among his kind. Genuine surprise, followed by the first stirrings of respect. The hunt might be more interesting than anticipated. Commander Y pressed a blood-soaked hand against the crumbling concrete wall, leaving a crimson handprint beside dozens of others. The subway tunnel beneath Beijing had become an impromptu evacuation route and memorial in one. Each handprint represented a survivor who'd made it this far. 3 days since the Vrax revealed their true purpose, and already the old world felt like a distant dream. Movement at Junction 12. Lai Mai whispered through their cobbled-together communication network, wireless earbuds paired to modified smartphones, operating on frequencies the Vrax overlooked as too primitive to monitor. Wei signaled his remaining squad members to freeze, once 30 strong, now reduced to 7. The tunnel ahead remained pitch black, but Wei didn't need light to know what approached. The distinctive 3-beat footfall pattern of Vrax hunters echoed from the darkness. 2 quick steps followed by a pause, an evolutionary adaptation for stalking prey across their homeworld's uneven terrain. Ambush protocol, Wei subvocalized. Around him, shadows shifted as his people pressed themselves into recessed maintenance doorways and behind fallen debris. The tunnel temperature dropped noticeably. Another Vrax hunting signature. Their exoskeletons released heat in controlled bursts during pursuit, creating cold spots that had initially confused human thermal imaging. Now Wei used it to track them. The first hunter materialized from the darkness, adaptive camouflage rippling like oil over water. 9 feet of armored death, moving with the silent confidence of an apex predator. What unsettled Wei most wasn't their size or weaponry, but how they hunted, the almost ritualistic precision, the unnecessary flourishes. The Vrax didn't just kill, they performed. This one wore a necklace of human teeth, still bloody, not for practical purposes, but display. Trophy collection. Wei waited until the hunter passed his position before triggering the trap. Emergency lights blazing to life, temporarily overwhelming the Vrax's sensitive compound eyes. In that moment of vulnerability, Wei's team struck from all sides. The hunter's surprised chittering echoed through the tunnel as handmade spears, rebar sharpened against concrete, pierced the joints of its exoskeleton. Not random strikes, but precisely targeted attacks based on the physiological data Elena had distributed to resistance cells worldwide. The creature fought with astonishing strength, impaling Sergeant Chen through the chest with a barred appendage. But unlike earlier encounters, Wei's team didn't retreat. They swarmed the hunter, accepting casualties to bring it down, a tactic the Vrax hadn't encountered in their previous hunts across the galaxy. When the alien finally collapsed, Wei approached cautiously, EMP baton ready to disrupt any self-destruct mechanism. The dying hunter's mandibles clicked rapidly, not in distress, but communication. From its thorax, a recording device activated. Specimen group shows unprecedented cooperative hunting behavior. The Vrax's translation matrix rendered in mechanical Mandarin. Recommend elevated threat classification. Wei knelt beside the alien predator. You're not documenting our extinction. You're witnessing your own. He retrieved a combat knife and, following the instructions in Elena's briefing package, removed a specific thoracic plate from the Vrax exoskeleton. According to intercepted communications, this particular segment carried significant trophy value in their culture. Take the wounded to Junction 18, Wei ordered, pocketing the alien fragment, and bring the hunter's weapons. As his team regrouped, Wei's comm unit crackled with an incoming transmission, the first coordinated resistance broadcast, bouncing between defunct satellite networks in patterns too random for the Vrax to predict and block. Commander Wei, Elena Kovacs's voice emerged through static. The Geneva facility is compromised, but we've secured critical intelligence. The Vrax aren't just hunting us. They're categorizing us, and some of us have been classified as something they call worthy adversaries. Wei studied the alien blood coating his hands. Then let's make sure they all know exactly how worthy we are. Amara Okafor circled the juvenile Vrax with the practiced eye of someone who had spent years rehabilitating wounded predators. The underground chamber, formerly a bank vault, had been modified to contain the alien while mimicking elements of its native environment. Specialized heat lamps maintained the higher temperatures their silicon-based biology required. The alien paced its enclosure restlessly, mandibles clicking. It's not angry, Amara observed. It's following a pattern. Dr. Kovacs typed notes into a salvage tablet. Ritualistic behavior. Exactly. Like tigers marking territory. 5 steps, turn, 3 steps. Mark. Amara pointed to barely perceptible scratches the creature left on the floor. It's creating a symbolic territory, even in captivity. The revelation had profound implications. If Vrax's behavior was this ritualized, it could be predicted and exploited. Miguel entered carrying equipment cobbled together from captured Vrax technology and human electronics. Translators ready, though I can't guarantee accuracy beyond 70%. It's enough, Elena said. Begin recording. Amara stepped closer to the barrier separating them from the juvenile. We've been approaching this backward, she said. We've been treating it as a prisoner, but among apex predators, status is everything. She adjusted the lighting, creating a spotlight effect on the central area of the enclosure, similar to how Vrax displayed dominant individuals during their communication rituals. The juvenile immediately moved into the light, posture changing subtly. Now we talk to it as equals, Amara said. No, as superior hunters seeking knowledge. Elena activated the translator and spoke carefully. Your hunting party believes you dead. Shame follows their return. The effect was immediate. The juveniles plating flushed dark purple, what Elena had identified as their equivalent of alarm or distress. I am Verktal, third molt hunter of the Shivering Spine clan. The translator rendered its chittering response. Death before shame. Yet here you stand, captured by prey. Elena continued, following Amara's strategy. Unless what? Meat creature. The translator couldn't capture tonality, but the alien's aggressive posture spoke volumes. Amara stepped forward. Unless you were performing reconnaissance, gathering intelligence about superior hunting methods to bring back to your clan. The ploy was transparent to humans, but the Vrax's psychology operated on different principles. The juvenile's posture shifted again, its plates realigning into what they'd identified as a receptive configuration. The worthy hunter studies all techniques, it agreed after a calculated pause. For the next 3 hours, they engaged in what the Vrax believed was an exchange of hunting methodologies. In reality, each seemingly casual question extracted critical information about Vrax's sensory capabilities, social hierarchies, and technological weaknesses. They learned that Vrax's vision operated primarily in ultraviolet and infrared spectrums, with limited perception of what humans considered visible light. Their auditory system could detect vibrations through solid surfaces better than air, explaining their effectiveness in urban environments. Most importantly, they discovered that Vrax's neural implants connected hunters to their ships via quantum entanglement, each death transmitting the experience to their collective knowledge base. They're learning from every engagement, Elena realized. That's why they're adapting so quickly to our tactics. The juvenile suddenly stiffened, head tilting in an unsettling angle. The primary hunt approaches. You will provide excellent sport. Before they could question further, alarms blared throughout the facility. On monitors, they watched as 3 full-sized Vrax hunters materialized outside the bunker entrance, the juvenile's hunting party, tracking their lost member through means they hadn't anticipated. They followed the neural connection, Miguel realized, frantically gathering data drives. Commander Wei's voice crackled over the intercom. Evacuation protocol Omega. They brought a harvester. Amara met Elena's eyes. We're about to find out if our little exchange was worth it. The juvenile chittered what the translator identified as a Vrax hunting prayer. Then, with surprising clarity and almost perfect English, it added, Run well. Pray. The worthy deserve a chase. The captured Vrax vessel hung suspended in the abandoned mine shaft, its biomechanical hull pulsing with subdued light. Commander Wei ran his hand along its surface, warm and slightly yielding, more like cartilage than metal. 2 weeks since Operation Mirror's success, and they were still uncovering the ship's secrets. It's recognizing you, Dr. Kovacs said, monitoring neural activity patterns on a repurposed medical tablet. These vessels form symbiotic bonds with their pilots. Wei withdrew his hand. Can it communicate our location? Doubtful. Miguel severed its quantum entanglement node. She pointed to a crystalline structure they'd removed and isolated in a lead-lined container. Though I suspect it's still trying. The vessel's interior had been transformed into humanity's first trophy hall. Captured Vrax technology arranged precisely according to the ritual patterns Elena had decoded from their cultural database. The psychological impact on their 3 Vrax prisoners had been immediate and profound. The aliens refused to look directly at the display, their exoskeletons exhibiting stress fractures from sustained muscle tension. The latest transmission intercept, Miguel said, entering with a data tablet. He'd lost weight, his frame gaunt from countless sleepless nights decoding Vrax communications, but his eyes burned with intensity. You need to see this. The screen displayed what appeared to be Vrax social metrics, status indicators, and viewer engagement statistics from their fleet-wide information network. Embedded within was footage from London. Children using improvised traps to incapacitate a high-ranking hunter. The recording had been viewed by over 70% of the Vrax fleet. They're fascinated by our adaptability, Elena explained. Especially coming from children. Their young trained for decades before their first hunt. The concept of human children as effective defenders disrupts their entire worldview. A proximity alarm sounded, subtle, rigged to alert humans without triggering Vrax auditory ranges. Y activated a camouflaged observation panel. Outside, a small team approached. Amara Okafor leading 3 individuals Way didn't recognize. "You're recruits from North Africa," he said as Elena moved to the security checkpoint. Minutes later, Amara entered with her team. A Moroccan cave guide with eyes that missed nothing. An Egyptian woman carrying specialized diving equipment. And a Libyan man whose scarred hands spoke of extensive combat experience. "The Mediterranean Coastal Defense has a proposition," Amara announced without preamble. "They've identified a pattern in Vrax hunting deployments. The aliens are establishing underwater collection bases." The Libyan man, Ferric, spread satellite imagery across the planning table. "They're using our offshore oil platforms, converting them into processing facilities." "Processing for what?" Way asked, though he suspected the answer. "Genetic material," the Egyptian woman, Nayla, replied. Her voice carried the flat effect of someone who'd witnessed horror beyond processing. "They're not just taking trophies anymore. They're harvesting DNA from captured humans. Different phenotypes, different regions." This matched intelligence from other resistance cells. The Vrax were categorizing humans into subspecies based on geographic adaptation. Arctic populations, desert dwellers, high-altitude communities, all targeted for specific genetic traits. They're creating a biodiversity catalog, Elena realized, like conservationists preserving endangered species. Because they think we'll soon be extinct, Y concluded. There's more. Amara activated a small holoprojector, salvaged Vrax technology. The Mediterranean team captured this 2 days ago. The projection showed underwater footage of a Vrax vessel larger than any they'd encountered, docked beneath a converted oil platform. Its architecture differed from their hunting ships, more industrial than predatory. "A dedicated genetic repository," Elena whispered. "If we could capture it." "Not capture," Y said, a plan already forming. "Hijack. Their arrogance is their vulnerability. They've never lost a hunting ground before, so their security protocols are ritualistic rather than practical." He turned to the newly arrived team. "How many underwater specialists can you gather in 48 hours? Nayla's expression hardened with determination. "Enough to make those aliens regret ever swimming in our seas." Miguel glanced at the Vrax prisoners visible through a monitoring screen. "Should we inform our guests about their species' impending embarrassment?" Way's smile was cold. "No need. They'll experience it along with their brethren through their precious neural link. Let's ensure it's a memory their collective consciousness never forgets." Dr. Kovic stared at the holographic display of the Vrax hunting codex, its alien symbols swirling in 3-dimensional patterns that hurt her eyes after too long. The Resistance's underground command center, built within an abandoned Chilean copper mine, hummed with activity as analysts work to extract every possible advantage from the stolen data. "You need to see this," Amara said, manipulating the display to highlight a specific section. "The Sovereign Classification Protocols." Elena zoomed in, the translation matrix converting alien script to human language. "Only 2 species ever granted this status," she read. "The Shkrath of Proxima Centauri, extinct after honorable conflict, and the Mordrine of Epsilon Eridani, currently maintained in preservation enclaves. Both were predator species themselves," Amara pointed out. "That's the pattern. The Vraks only respect evolutionary peers." A communications officer interrupted, her expression urgent. "Transmission from the Australian outback cell. They've captured something unprecedented." The central screen activated, showing a live feed from the Red Desert heart of Australia. Commander Callum, leader of the Outback Resistance, stood beside what appeared to be a damaged Vrax shuttle. But it wasn't the vehicle that drew gasps from the command center staff. It was its pilot. The Vrax was unlike any they'd encountered. Where most hunters stood 9 feet tall with iridescent exoskeletons, this one barely reached human height. Its plating was paler, almost translucent, with modified appendages suggesting adaptation to different tasks than hunting. "We intercepted it during an atmospheric sampling mission," Callum explained. "It surrendered rather than self-destructing." "It's not a hunter," Elena realized. "It's from their scientific caste." This confirmed a theory they'd developed while studying the hunting codex. Vrax society was rigidly specialized, with distinct evolutionary branches optimized for different functions. Hunters were merely the military arm of a complex civilization. "It's requesting asylum," Callum continued, disbelief evident in his voice. "Claims to be part of something called the Evolutionary Revision Coalition." The alien scientist stepped forward, its translator producing stilted but understandable English. "Your species presents paradigm anomaly. Hunters cannot comprehend. Scientists must preserve knowledge." "What knowledge?" Elena asked, leaning toward the camera. "Humans evolved as both prey and predator," the alien explained. "Dual path adaptation unprecedented in cataloged species. Some among science casts believe. You are evolutionary future we once abandoned." The implication stunned everyone present. This wasn't merely about survival anymore. Humanity represented something fundamentally challenging to Vrax evolutionary theory. "There's dissent within their civilization," Miguel whispered. "We can exploit that." The Vrax scientist extended a data crystal. Huntercast plans purification strike. 8 solar cycles. All major resistance nodes targeted simultaneously. Elena felt her blood run cold. Purification strike. Abandonment of hunt protocols. Full military deployment. The alien's translator couldn't convey emotion, but its body language suggested urgency. Science cast objects. Humans must not be exterminated, must be studied, understood. Commander Wei, who had been silently observing, stepped into camera range. "And what do you offer in exchange for sanctuary?" The alien's compound eyes fixed on Wei with unsettling precision. "Complete schematics of Vrax neural network. The hunting fleet's coordination relies on quantum entanglement. Disrupt it, and their coordinated offensive falls apart." Wei finished. The scientist's head tilted in what they'd learned was affirmation. ScienceCast believes humans demonstrate evolutionary path Vrax abandoned 2 million years past. Adaptability over specialization. Elena exchanged glances with Wei. This changed everything. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were challenging the Vrax's fundamental understanding of evolutionary fitness. "Bring our new ally to Santiago," Wei instructed Callum, "and prepare your team for evacuation. If there's one defector, there may be others." Elena completed his thought. "Or this could be the most elaborate trap they've set yet." The Vrax scientists' mandibles clicked, their equivalent of a resigned sigh. "Trust not required. Verify data. Survival logic supersedes deception capacity." As the transmission ended, Alina turned to the assembled command staff. 8 solar cycles to prevent global extermination. And our best hope is an alien scientist who believes we're evolution's next masterpiece. Amara smiled grimly. Good thing we've spent our entire evolutionary history beating impossible odds. The atmosphere in the selection chamber crackled with tension as the 50 finalists, potential champions to represent humanity in the challenge hunt, watched footage of previous Vrax hunt rituals. The images projected on the wall showed alien landscapes where the Shkrath, now extinct, had made their final stand against Vrax hunters. The savagery was methodical, beautiful in its terrible precision. This isn't just combat, Dr. Kovacs explained. It's performance, ritual, art. The Vrax value the story of the hunt as much as the kill itself. Commander Wei studied the assembled candidates. Former Special Forces operators from a dozen nations stood alongside wilderness guides, tribal hunters, and urban survivors who developed deadly skills during the occupation. Each brought unique capabilities, but Wei knew that physical prowess alone wouldn't be enough. Our advantage isn't strength, he said, shutting off the projection. It's plurality of thought. The Vrax evolved as specialized hunters. We evolved to adapt to any environment, any challenge. A small delegation entered the chamber, representatives from resistance cells worldwide, here to observe the final selection process. Among them walked the defector Vrax scientist, now called Pascal after the human mathematician. The alien moved with the cautious grace of someone perpetually afraid, compound eyes constantly scanning for threats. The Hunt Council has sent specifications, Pascal announced, placing a crystalline data storage device on the central table. The challenge zone will be what you call Yellowstone. Miguel activated the holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional terrain map of the national park. Geothermal features, dense forests, open valleys, both familiar and alien environments. Why there? Asked Kenta Yoshida, the Japanese trap specialist whose name had risen to mythic status among resistance fighters. Symbolic equilibrium, Pascal explained. Human territory, but with features reminiscent of Vrax homeworld thermal vents. Neither side claims advantage. Mateo Garza, whose exploits in the flooded ruins of Mexico City had earned him the nickname the Ghost of the Deep, pointed to elevated plateaus within the projected landscape. High ground positions. Irrelevant in 3-dimensional combat, Pascal responded. Vrax hunters attack from any vector. The selection committee had narrowed the candidate pool through exhaustive trials, but the final team composition remained undecided. This wasn't merely about choosing the best fighters. It was about selecting the right combination of skills, perspectives, and psychological profiles to counter the Vrax elite hunters. Belina watched how the candidates interacted, noting alliances and conflicts. The Vrax expected individual prowess. Humans would win through coordination and complementary abilities. Time frame. Wei asked Pascal. 7 solar cycles for preparation. The challenge itself spans 3 diurnal periods. The room fell silent as the implication sank in. 3 days to determine humanity's fate. 3 days that would either establish Earth as a sovereign world or condemn survivors to perpetual harvesting. There's something you should know, Pascal added, mandibles clicking nervously. Supreme Huntmaster Kazarin will personally lead the Vrax team. Murmurs spread through the assembled candidates. Kazarin was not just an elite hunter. He was the architect of Earth's invasion, the most decorated predator in 12 systems. Good, Wei said, surprising everyone. That means when we win, there can be no dispute. A slender woman stepped forward. Dai Lai, the Chinese astronaut who'd survived alone on the International Space Station for 6 months after the invasion, watching Earth burn before making a daring atmospheric re-entry in a modified escape pod. Her time observing Vrax patterns from orbit had given her unique insights into their fleet movements. The Vrax elite train alone, she said, each perfecting individual skills in isolation. We should train as a unit from the start. even before final selection. Wei nodded approval. 5 days to build a team that functions as a single organism. Then we make the final cut. And what about psychological warfare? Asked Amara. The Vraks expect certain behaviors from prey. Belina smiled for the first time in days. That's exactly why our champions will begin by acting exactly as expected, and then show them something they've never seen before. We survey the room of humanity's finest survivors. The Vraks believe this challenge is about determining if we deserve to exist. It's not. It's about showing them they're not the apex predators they thought they were. Outside the chamber, visible through reinforced windows, thousands of resistance fighters had gathered, representatives from every surviving human enclave. Their presence sent a clear message. Regardless of which 5 champions were chosen, they would carry the will of an entire species. The sulfur-laden mist swirled around Old Faithful's basin as Mateo Garza submerged himself in the thermal pool's edge, his modified wetsuit regulating temperature against the scalding water. Through specialized goggles, hybrid technology combining Vraks' optical systems with human engineering, he watched the alien hunter stalk the ridgeline above, searching for signs of human movement. Target moving to Junction Point Delta. He subvocalized through the team's quantum-encrypted communication system, exactly as predicted. Kilometers away, concealed within a hollowed tree trunk, Kenta Yoshida acknowledged. The Japanese trapper had spent the previous night laying an intricate series of false trails designed to funnel the Vraks hunter toward a predetermined ambush point. Confirmation from orbital feed came Dayuli's voice. The former astronaut, using her expertise in spatial awareness, coordinated the team from a concealed position atop a sheer cliff face. The hijacked Vraks surveillance drone provided her with real-time tactical information. 3 minutes to convergence. The first day of the challenge hunt had proceeded exactly according to the human strategy. Their apparently chaotic retreat had successfully separated the 5 Vraks elite hunters, who now pursued individual prey through different sections of Yellowstone's very terrain. Commander Wei, crouched in a camouflaged blind constructed of local materials and thermal dampening technology, watched his designated target through a rifle scope. The weapon contained no projectiles. This phase of the plan required observation, not engagement. Behavioral analysis confirmed, he reported. Target displaying tertiary hunting pattern. Dr. Kovacs, monitoring from a geothermal vent where the rising heat obscured her thermal signature, processed this information. During preparation, Pascal had identified 27 distinct hunting patterns employed by elite Vraks. Each required a specific counter-strategy. Begin convergence, she ordered. Transition to Phase 2. The human team had spent the first day allowing themselves to be hunted, appearing to follow the expected prey behavior while actually gathering critical intelligence on their opponent's individual hunting styles. Now, as the Yellowstone sun began to set, they would implement the strategy that Pascal had described as evolutionarily impossible for the Vraks to anticipate. Across 5 separate hunting zones, simultaneously, the humans altered their behavior pattern from prey to predator. Mateo surged from the thermal pool behind his target, deploying an aerosol compound derived from earth fungi that temporarily crystallized in the Vraks' breathing spiracles. The alien hunter, suddenly gasping for oxygen, broke from its methodical stalking pattern into an instinctive retreat. In the forest sector, Kenta triggered a series of non-technological traps, deadfalls, and snares designed to herd rather than kill, driving his disoriented target toward Amara's position. Wei abandoned his observation post, moving with practiced silence through the underbrush. His target, sensing the change in hunting dynamics, activated an emergency beacon, a breach of protocol that confirmed the psychological impact of the human strategy. They're experiencing pattern shock, Elena observed, monitoring neural feedback through a modified Vrak scanner. Their programming literally cannot process prey becoming predator mid-hunt. The Vraks hunters, for the first time in their evolutionary history, began to coordinate defensively rather than offensively. This tactical shift, observed by billions of viewers across both human resistance networks and Vrax's fleet consciousness, represented an unprecedented moment. As night fell over Yellowstone, the human team converged on their first target, the youngest of the Vrax elites, now isolated from its companions. Unlike traditional Vrax hunts that could last days, the humans planned for decisive action. Remember, Alina reminded the team, we're not just fighting 5 hunters. We're performing for their entire species. The surrounded Vrax elite, realizing its position, stood tall in a ceremonial posture. Its translator broadcasted clear English. I recognize worthy adversaries. My hunt ends with honor. Wei approached from the shadows, carrying not a weapon but one of the ritual markers recovered from the hunting codex. Your hunt ends, he agreed, applying the mark to the alien's exoskeleton in the precise pattern indicating respect between equals. Ours is just beginning. Rather than killing the defeated hunter, the humans enacted the ancient sovereign recognition ritual, turning an expected execution into something the watching Vrax civilization had never witnessed. Mercy as tactical advantage. Across the Vrax neural network, confusion rippled through the collective consciousness. The humans weren't following any recognized prey pattern. They were writing an entirely new hunting story. The Great Hall of what had once been the United Nations headquarters now served a new purpose. Its restored architecture, deliberately showing both damage from the invasion and human craftsmanship in repairs, provided the perfect symbolic venue for the most significant diplomatic event in Earth's history. Dr. Alina Kovacs adjusted the ceremonial sash across her formal attire, a hybrid garment incorporating elements of human diplomatic tradition and symbols from the Vrax sovereign recognition protocols. As lead senolinguist and key architect of humanity's victory, she would translate the proceedings for the global audience. Neural transmitters are functioning at optimal capacity, Miguel reported, his gaunt frame now filling out after months of improved conditions. Every Vrax in the fleet will witness this, along with an estimated 3.2 billion humans, through our reconstituted networks. Commander Wei entered, accompanied by the other challenge hunt champions. They wore matching ceremonial attire, each bearing the distinctive mark representing their contribution to the victory. Behind them walked representatives from resistance cells worldwide, leaders from every continent where humans had fought back and survived. Pascal confirms the Vrax delegation is approaching. Wei informed her. Kazarin is bringing their full council of evolutionary assessors. Alina nodded, her expression solemn. The Nexus threat data checks out. Astronomical observations confirm unusual stellar activity in the sectors they've identified. The defector scientist had provided comprehensive information about the hive mind species consuming star systems at the galactic core, a threat that even the mighty Vrax Dominion had failed to contain. Pascal theorized that humanity's unique evolutionary development might hold the key to defeating this existential danger. A distinctive hum filled the air as the Vrax delegation materialized on the prepared platform. Supreme Huntmaster Kazarin led the procession, his exoskeleton bearing the ritualistic markings of the challenge hunt, including, to the surprise of many humans present, the mark of respect Wei had placed upon the defeated hunter. We gather to formalize the elevation of Terra to sovereign status. Kazarin's translator rendered his complex vocalizations into measured English, the third such designation in 12,000 cycles of the Great Hunt. The ceremonial exchange proceeded according to protocols developed jointly by human and Vrax cultural specialists. When complete, Earth would be formally recognized as inviolable territory, protected not just by treaty but by the deeply ingrained hunting codes that governed Vrax civilization. As Alina translated the complex legal terminology, she noticed something unexpected in Kazarin's body language. Subtle shifts in posture and plate coloration that their research had identified as indicators of profound respect, perhaps even admiration. The Supreme Huntmaster completed the formal recognition rites, then did something unprecedented. He deactivated his ceremonial armor's power systems, rendering himself vulnerable in a gesture of trust. The assembled Vrax Council chittered in shock. Beyond sovereign status, Kazarin continued, we propose alliance. The Nexus approaches, a prey that honors no boundaries, demonstrates no worthy qualities, exists only to consume. Against such a threat, predators must unite. We stepped forward. We've reviewed the evidence your scientists provided. The threat is real. But understand this, humans will never be junior partners in any alliance. We meet as equals or not at all. Kazarin's mandibles clicked in what they now recognized as amusement. After witnessing your species transform from prey to predator within a single generation, only a fool would consider humans inferior. The formal alliance documents were presented, data crystals and paper copies side by side, symbolic of the technological exchange to come. The terms included reparations for the invasion, return of human captives, medical assistance for affected populations, and a framework for technological cooperation against the Nexus threat. As Alina reviewed the final translation, Amara leaned close to whisper, "Is this really happening? Peace with the species that nearly exterminated us." Alina's reply came with the hard-won wisdom of someone who had stared into alien eyes and found unexpected connection. Not peace. Understanding. Predators respect worthy adversaries. Sometimes that's the strongest foundation possible. Outside the hall, visible through restored windows, Earth's first joint human-Vrax defense platform took shape in orbit. Its design incorporating the adaptability of human engineering with the precision of Vrax biotechnology. Below it, reconstruction teams from both species worked to restore cities damaged during the invasion. As human and Vrax leaders formalized their alliance, Pascal approached Elena with a data crystal. The complete Vrax evolutionary archive, the scientist explained, including our greatest failure, the moment our species chose specialization over adaptability. Why share this? Elena asked. Because the Nexus can only be defeated by what you call thinking outside established patterns, Pascal replied. A capability your species possesses in abundance. The ceremony concluded with a gesture unprecedented in Vrax culture. Kazarin and Wei clasped hands in the human tradition of agreement, while cameras transmitted the image to both civilizations. The predators have become partners, Elena translated for the global audience, and the galaxy will never be the same.